By 1998, having already conquered the rest of the world, the Backstreet Boys were taking America by storm, reaching fever pitch and phenomenon status practically overnight. But the exhilaration of sudden success soon gave way to profound sadness when one of the band members was shocked by life-threatening news. Brian Littrell's life began just up the road from his cousin Kevin in Lexington, Kentucky, where he was an active kid who loved sports, especially basketball. As a child, however, Brian was diagnosed with having both a murmur and a hole in his heart. Around the same time, a simple knee scrape led to a potentially fatal staph infection. The prognosis was so grim, the doctors told Brian's parents to start thinking about funeral arrangements. And yet the resilient 5-year-old miraculously survived. The congenital heart condition, though, would ultimately need repair. And at the age of 23, Brian Littrell would have to undergo open heart surgery.
It was kind of disbelief because I felt so healthy going into the surgery. That was kind of the hardest thing to believe, was why I had to do this in order to live the rest of my life.
But on May 8, 1998, in Rochester, Minnesota, Brian was wheeled into an operating room.
Well, I was supposed to be in surgery for 45 minutes, and I was under for 2.5 hours because they found another hole that nobody knew about.
Despite the complications, when we spoke to Brian 2 years ago, shortly after the surgery, he appeared to be on the mend and in high spirits, even willing to show us his scar. Today, however, Brian sheds new light on dark days, charging that after the surgery, having already persuaded him to postpone it not once but twice for business reasons, the group's former management team then pressured him back on the road before he was ready, physically or emotionally.
8 weeks to the day of my surgery, I was back up on stage in Charlotte, North Carolina, with
oxygen tank standing by.
Yeah. I mean, for the first 2 weeks of the tour, I had, you know, paramedics and people, just because I didn't know. You know, I mean, I was in.
That'd be kind of scary.
It was very scary. It wasn't really my choice.
I was going to say, I mean, but it should have been, shouldn't it have?
It should have been nothing but my choice.
Throughout the ordeal, Brian, a devout Christian who one day wants to record gospel, says his faith in God never wavered. His faith in mankind, however, was shaken. Though the allegations are vehemently disputed, Brian now contends that the group's high-profile split with Louis Pearlman and Johnny and Donna Wright was at least in part due to the management team's alleged lack of compassion, placing a greater premium on the bottom line than on Brian's well-being.
The schedule was just laid out in front of us, and that's what got so frustrating, was because it was just chop, 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 had to be everywhere at a specific time, and nothing could stand in the way.
And if our management would have planned with us instead of planning by themselves, we wouldn't have been in this situation.
In the end, the Backstreet Boys walked away from that situation, bidding farewell to those who groomed them for fame, but who also, they say, betrayed their trust. The experience, both the surgery and the fallout, was a lesson learned, Brian hopes, not only for himself, but for his fans as well.
They realized a little bit through me, I think, of what hard work is. You know, a lot of people think the entertainment business is such an enjoyable thing, and it's glamorous, and I mean, it has its perks, but you know, there's real life behind all of it.
Oh my God, we're back again.
On stage, AJ sells sex, but off stage, 22-year-old Alexander James McLean is romantically involved with one woman. Though unlike Kevin and Brian, he's not yet engaged. Amanda Latona, formerly a member of the aspiring girl group Innocence, has a track record of keeping things in the Transcon family, with a list of ex-boyfriends that includes members of both NSYNC and LFO.
It is kind of weird to have to look on the TV every day and see her ex, and it's like, you know, go away.
Go away? LFO maybe. NSYNC, no time soon. But there is one central figure in A.J. McLean's life who regrettably did go away.
My father was never really talked about a lot growing up.
When A.J. was just 4 years old, his parents divorced and his father virtually disappeared.
Last time I saw him, from the time that my parents were separated, I saw him when I was about 12 years old. I at first didn't know who the hell he was. And then my mom kind of clued me in. She kind of, you know, pat me on the back and said, you know, that's your father. And I was like, oh, okay.
Despite his father's absence, A.J. recalls an extremely happy childhood, growing up in Florida without any brothers or sisters, but surrounded by a large, extended family. A.J.'s mother faithfully drove her son from audition to audition as he excelled at dance, gymnastics, and the theater. And when his star began to rise at an early age, his family cautioned him about his prodigal dad.
My family continuously filled my head with, you're going to be successful, you're going to make a lot of money someday, you're going to be a big superstar and all this stuff. And they also said, your dad's going to come looking for you when he sees the little dinner bell ring and he sees the, cha-ching. And I didn't believe that either. And just as things started to pick up, phone calls started coming in, started getting Christmas cards, started getting birthday cards. Like, wow, man, they were right.
But 2 years ago, after noting that the return address on a piece of mail was only about 15 minutes away from his own home, A.J. impulsively decided to pay a visit to his estranged father.
Why the hell not, So I went ahead and checked it out, and sure enough, there he was. Backstreet memorabilia up on the wall. He had been keeping up with the whole Backstreet thing since the whole thing started.
Did that feel weird, knowing that this guy was out there following what you were up to?
It was kind of awkward. He kind of expected me just to, like, jump back into it and just become your son all over again. And it's just, I couldn't do that. I was raised solely by my mom and my grandparents. My mom is the most wonderful woman alive, and she, had to play the role of both mom and dad for me. And whether it was me having a guy problem or me having a problem with girls, she was there for everything, and he wasn't.
And even today, A.J. remains emotionally conflicted, if not outright cynical, about the prospects of a long-term reconciliation.
What do you do? Because that is still my dad, that is still my flesh and blood, and, I look at someone like Kevin who doesn't have a father right now, and, I do, but, I'd love to fix things, but you just can't,